Hello, everyone. My name is Oana Frunza. I'm Vice President of Machine Learning Research in the Machine Learning Research Department at Morgan Stanley. And today I'm going to talk to you about realities, challenges, and possibilities of NLP technologies in the financial sector. I will start the presentation by giving you a bit of an overview of some NLP applications that you could find in the financial industry, then talk to you about an unsupervised information extraction system aimed at identifying and extracting important economic concepts from Federal Open Market Committee statements. In the past years, like many other industries, the financial sector has seen NLP as an important ally in better serving clients, keeping a competitive advantage, drawing insightful information that can complement the purely financial systems. While textual data might not be the first type of data that come to mind when you think about the financial domain, being such a highly regulated industry, there are a lot of documents that are being released periodically. And here I can mention 8K reports, 10K reports, earning calls, financial analyst reports, and so on and so forth. So all this data has shown to represent a source of knowledge for important signal that can complement the purely financial systems. You can identify and summarize corporate strategies. You can identify signal that help provide a forward-looking investment strategy, and so on and so forth. But besides these purely financial narratives, there are also non-financial narratives that have shown, again, to not only have an impact on the stock market, but really shake the stock market. And here I don't have to go far to talk to you about, tweets that have shown to really have an important influence in the stock market, of conversations that happen on social platforms that affect the prices that we see at the stock market. So really, in the past years, the NLP tools and technologies have shown to be a must-have set of tools in the stack of technologies that support the front, the middle, and the back office of financial institutions. So let me now give you some examples of NLP applications that you can encounter in any of these offices. So NLP can help with one of the most forward-facing, client-facing interactions, from the voice assistant that can pick up your phone when you call your bank, to the agent that sits behind that call to better help and support him to find the relevant information that she needs to answer your call and solve your problem, to supporting the financial analyst to better understand your interest, your likes, your dislikes, to better keep him engaged and provide him the relevant information to better support you, to create a better, customer institution financial relation, and so on and so forth. Understanding the client sentiments. Again, what are the clients happy, unhappy about? So these are all the things that NLP can help with to better provide services that clients are excited of. As I mentioned, being a highly regulated industry, we deal with large amounts of data that come in at various frequencies. But one of the places where NLP has had a history in is trying to understand and react to news headlines. So here, just basically ingesting this high frequency volume of textual data, understand what is the sentiment that's being portrayed in these news headlines. Is it about a merger and acquisition? Is it about new CEO that is being onboarded? Is it another board member that is coming into place? So what is the sentiment that's being surrounded in the news headlines around the company, so on and so forth? So analyzing, ingesting, dissecting news headlines has been a place where NLP has been helping the financial industry for quite some time. Another hot topic that you commonly see in the financial domain is sentiment analysis. And here I'm not talking about the customer and the movie review sentiment analysis. In the financial domain, this task has a very strong financial dimension. And one example, so Morgan Stanley has released an investment strategy a few years back that was purely based on the sentiment drawn from the reports of financial analysts. So just by looking at what is the sentiment that's being portrayed in these financial reports and creating an investment strategy on it has shown to outperform more traditional investment strategies that are based on purely financial data. So here we have an example where NLP not only complements the financial, systems that are based on purely numerical data, but sometimes can beat them as well. How do we, create financial Google search engines that help financial advisor, agents to better find the right information faster and more efficient? It is another place, in the middle office where NLP technology can help the financial industry. And then you have places that are not so obvious for where NLP can help, like risk mitigation, compliance, fraud detection, risk exposures, and so on and so forth. So NLP has really shown to be able to lend an additional pair of eyes to make sure that things that shouldn't happen are not happening, that things and concepts are being referred the same way everywhere, that people are using the same terminologies when they refer to a particular financial concept, and so on and so forth. So here again, places where NLP, it has shown to really make a difference and help things run smoother and the way they should run. And of course, with something that's, very important, fairness, interpretability, and accountability. Again, financial sector being highly regulated, things, should be done in a certain way, and it's of utmost importance to keep, the clients happy, to keep the trust, and to continue to provide the best services possible to the clients. I don't have to convince you that NLP is hard, but I can tell you that it is harder in finance than many other places. And there are a few reasons why this is the case. There is a wealth of diversity of data that these financial systems need to ingest. Besides the purely numerical dollar sign data, you have this textual, structured, unstructured data. Time dimension is very important in finance, which might not be the case in all other domains. There is a lot of textual data, but not always labeled. And I do have to say that things, I think, are changing. We see more and more conferences, events where NLP in finance is of focus. So you do have models and data sets that's starting more and more to exist out there. So you can, just take them and bootstrap from that your system. But still, the amount of information models and resources for financial textual is not as rich as other domains. And not to mention that financial textual data is different than other domains, because here people talk differently, things are being mentioned, things are being portrayed in a different way. One of the most important things with these financial systems is speed. And, I would go as far as to say that speed is the name of the game. The faster your system is, the faster you get to the market to perform the right action, buy or sell, and so on and so forth. And speed is a hard constraint. So you can have an NLP system that, does amazing job, but if it doesn't meet the required speed, chances are that you might not see that application in production. And also performance is very important. You know, the more performant the system is, you know, the better it is, the better outcomes. So these are really two tall orders that NLP techniques have to meet to be deployed and be used in the financial domain. So these are some reasons why, you know, building and deploying NLP technologies for the financial industry is really exciting, but it's also difficult as well. But now let me go and talk to you about, you know, a successful story of where NLP can help the purely financial systems. And this is an unsupervised information extraction system that basically looks at FOMC statements. These are statements that are released roughly every 6 weeks that basically portray the economic status. So the business goal here is to basically take this report and extract what are the most economic factors and what is being mentioned about them, but also assign a sentiment score to how is the language that describes this economic factors present in the document. So, you know, it's not a long document. You know, someone can come and quickly basically read this document, extract these economic factors, what's being said, you know, maybe assign or not a sentiment score. But as I mentioned, speed is the name of the game. So the faster this process is done, the faster can be ingested by other purely financial system on, you know, on other financial decisions that can be made. On the second point on the need for building such a system is the fact that you could get a structured representation of these reports. You could create them for historical data. So, you know, you can have a structured representation of how is the economic lookout, you know, from past, and, you know, maybe predict how it will look in the future, and so on and so forth. So this is, you know, the business need for building such a system. And here I just have an example that's, you know, shows you what does it have to do. So given, you know, the textual document, it has to identify this 6 economic factors, identify, you know, what's being said about them, like how it is being mentioned in the document. So the nice thing about this system is that it's very modular and is very robust. And it's not only financial domain specific. It can be applied to other domains. And it is built as a series of steps that can allow us to achieve what we want in the end. So the first step is a dependency parsing. So here I use the Stanford Core NLP, but the code can be adjusted to other dependency parsers as well. And the starting point of the system are subject relations that exist in each of the sentences in the document. So once we identify the subject relations, we are going to recursively add dependents to both the subject and the object part of the subject relation, only if they are of a particular flavor, and only if at any point when we add a new dependent, they are of a particular part of speech. So with this idea in mind, given the sentence that you see in the picture above, the initial step, we find, you know, inflation continued and inflation continued. Those are the 2 subject relations that were identified in this sentence. And through that recursive call of adding both left and right, you know, dependents to the subject relation, if they are of particular flavor and of a particular part of speech, in the end, after this second step of this system, we are going to get both overall inflation and inflation for items have continued to run below 2%, and inflation have continued to run below 2%. So we do so for every sentence in the statement. And then at the end of it, we'll have a series of key value pairs that are being extracted. And now we have to assign a sentiment to these key value pairs. While I looked at other off-the-shelf tools, I think it's well known that all these tools, they don't scale up so well for financial text. They come out as neutral. And on top of that, it's very hard to find meaningful sentiment scores for very short text, which is the case that we have now. So we have these key value pairs, and we have to assign a sentiment score to very short text. So then I looked at this SentiWordNet resource, and basically what I have done for each word that appears in the extracted key value pairs, I look at the positive and negative scores in the SentiWordNet. I look at the difference between the positive and negative scores, and then I average them across, the words that participated in the sentiment assignment step. If there is a negation present in the key value pair, I'm going to flip the sign of the result. And also there is a step that takes account for multi-word expressions, which we know that exist in the SentiWordNet. So here I just have a few examples of sentiments that can be assigned to very short text, and we can see, there is a nuance to them. So it does provide some signal, even though it's very short text. So the next step in the system is concept value pair filtering. And here the nice thing about it is that, we have all this list of key value pairs with sentiment scores assigned. How do we identify the ones that are relevant to those concepts that we initially defined, right? And the way this has been done is by providing a set of knobs to the user that can tune the amount of information that is being returned and how it is being searched for. So the knobs that we provide are this, like, where do you want to search for the economic factor? In the key, in the value, in both parts of those key value pairs that are extracted? What kind of matching technique do you want to look at? Is it a string matching? Is it a word embedding based matching? Are there any constraints that you would like the values to be returned? So, we all know that inflation, it has to be a numerical value. So even though there might be many key phrases and key value pairs that mention inflation, I want to see only the one that contains a numeric value, because this is what I'm interested. What is the inflation rate in the FOMC statement? And also, you can tune the degree information that you return. You want to see only one, the most relevant key value pair for that concept, or you want to see all of them that have been identified. And last but not the least, it's very easy to target new concepts. You just define what is the concept of interest, if there are any constraints, and then there you go. The system will be able to identify, the concept of interest and pick up what's the most relevant from there. And here I'm just showing you a graphical view of some results. In general, the performance of the system is around 96% accuracy, tested on 4 years of FOMC statement. So basically what you see here, the bars represent the federal fund rate, the label, the language that describes the economic factor, in this case, labor market. And the color in red is a sentiment score, the intensity of the color associated with the intensity of the sentiment. And in blue is the negative score, with the same directions. The intensity is reflected in the intensity of the sentiment. At the bottom, you can see the sentiment beat throughout the years. So you can quickly see how we can see the sentiment of how these concepts have been portrayed in the statements throughout the year. So, you get a nice overview of this information, that's being extracted and quantified through the years. And this is just the same for another concept of interest. So I mentioned this is not purely financial domain driven sentiment. We applied it for news headlines as well and other kind of reports. And if you want to read more, it has been published like last year in an EMNLP workshop paper. So, I encourage you to go and read more about the system. So yes, thank you very much for listening. Looking forward to taking your questions.